Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. Welcome back to Resiliency Redefined. I'm Robyne, and I'm excited to continue our conversation about sleep from last episode. So first and foremost, as always, thank you for spending time with me here. I appreciate so very much hearing from you and hearing that this is above all else useful, which is the main driver for creating these episodes for you. And again, thank you for taking the time to rate and review and also for sharing it with people that you think would benefit from some of this information. So thank you for keeping in touch. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for reviews. And thank you for being here today. So last episode, I got very excited to tell you all about sleep, and I covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. And today I wanted to bring in just a few more pieces of information that I think could be really helpful. Now, this is, as always, a standalone episode. You can just listen to this and it will set you up for success. If you want to take a deeper dive about essentially the business case as to why we need sleep, that would be the previous episode. Okay, so when we were talking last day about sleep, one of the ideas that I invited you to think about was how we kind of show up in the morning is going to have a really big impact on the quality of sleep that we have at nighttime. So one of the things that we think about is your circadian rhythms. So essentially that's like the system that kind of controls all of the wakefulness and sleep and recovery. It's basically the frequency. It's like the soundtrack for our sleep behavior. Our circadian rhythms are designed for all intents and purposes on about a 24-hour schedule, plus or minus, but ultimately it's about 24 hours. And 8 of those hours, a third of our day, is meant to be in rest and recovery. Okay, so we are systems. We are these creatures that are designed to experience wakefulness for approximately 16 hours, and 8 hours we're meant and designed to rest, to sleep. So one of the ideas we shared last day, and to kind of start us off, when we think about a good night's sleep, it actually starts in the morning. So what we want to do is essentially turn on that switch that says, our day is starting, which involves our circadian rhythm saying, okay, start, this is now, which is why we want to get outside first thing in the morning. So as soon as you wake up, if you're able to get outdoors, now you don't have to do some crazy run or a big intense walk with a weighted vest. Like, oh my gosh, you already carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You don't need to put more weight on, I don't believe, but simply going outside, standing on your porch, at your front door, in front of your apartment building, outside of wherever you are. Simply getting outdoors first thing in the morning sends the cue, a very important cue to your circadian rhythms. It's go time. And then what happens is essentially we will experience wakefulness for approximately 16 hours. And as the day starts to unwind, the circadian rhythm is going to gently start to increase the hormones that let us know it's time for rest and recovery. We're going to start to get a little bit more tired. Interestingly, we are the only mammals that actually delay sleep. Isn't that fascinating? Like what I was reading about is that there's no other animal that delays sleep the way that we do. So we are designed, and sometimes I think we are working against our nature by forcing ourselves to try and stay awake. We're the only creature that does that. Animals know for their survival, it's important to get their rest. Okay, I digress. So, back on that, your circadian rhythm says start. By 16 hours later, it's going to start to unwind. It's going to start to release that melatonin. You're start to going to get that feeling of ready to settle, which is extremely important to get a good night's sleep at that mark when it's time. Okay. The other idea I encourage you to do before you go to sleep at the or start to prepare for sleep is this idea about a wind down. So the kind of rule of thumb, there's many different rules of thumb on this one, but the 3-2-1 I think is pretty reliable, which is 3 hours before sleep, we're going to want to like avoid a really heavy meal or any type of a stimulant, any type of alcohol 3 hours out. So 3 hours out, we've kind of like we're done with the feeding. 2 hours out, we want to stop doing any like emotional or really intellectual type tasks. Okay. So 2 hours before bed, we want to stop the worky work for sure. But we also don't want to engage in like super difficult conversations, right? We don't want to engage in, helping people with trigonometry 2 hours before we try to go to bed or doing our own mental gymnastics of Excel spreadsheets or whatever that is for you. We want to start to have simpler activities. And then an hour, we want to minimize screens, especially exposure to blue light, is what the research says. So 3-2-1. Now, if you want to be wild, you can add a 10 ahead of your 3-2-1, which is minimizing caffeine 10 hours out. So 10 hours out, you want to minimize caffeine. Again, I feel even bad saying it because it's not a practice that I use. I can tolerate caffeine quite well, thank goodness. But again, so 10 hours out, you want to minimize caffeine for some people, but definitely the 3 hours out, minimizing heavy meals or any type of stimulant, 2 hours brain work, heavy brain work, 1 hour screens and blue light exposure. That is a wee bit of a recipe for creating a rhythm to start to wind down. The other invitation I would have as a grown up, if you recall what it's like when we create bedtime routines for children, like bedtime, I appreciate it's a wee bit of a power struggle as well because kids don't always necessarily want to wind down. However, there's something really beautiful about the rituals that we prepare for children to prepare for rest, right? If you think about it, we maybe turn down the lights, we might put on some softer music and we get them, they have their bath time maybe and they get their cozies on, their PJs, and maybe they read their favorite storybook and maybe have that glass of water. And again, they, maybe say their prayers or prepare their heart and their bodies for rest. I love hearing grown-ups share with me like their bedtime rituals because I think this could actually be this like sacred time you create for yourself to actually start to wind down. So making sure that you're comfortable, that you have your needs met. I know one of the practices I love is at right when I'm starting to wind down, I like clean up the kitchen because I love a clean kitchen in the morning. I clean up the kitchen, I get the coffee ready, and what I do is like I turn out the lights and essentially it's like the kitchen is now closed. Now, I guarantee you there will likely be a cereal bowl the next morning in the sink from somebody who needed to have their second dinner or whatever it might be. But at least that act of like turning down the lights, getting the kitchen set, reset is something that I find really helpful to cue. Now my wind down behaviors are going to start. So, first idea I've shared with you here is your circadian rhythm starting at go clock in the morning when getting outside. The second, perhaps, is that 3-2-1 or 10-3-2-1. Third idea here is creating a bedtime ritual or routine for a wind down. Now, let's say, okay, you still haven't even gotten into bed yet. Okay, so we're still building the environment to set ourselves up for a restful sleep. Now, another activity I really encourage you to think about, and this isn't just specific to sleep behavior, it's something I find so useful, and I do this myself so often, is to have essentially a place to put my worries. Because if I wake up in the middle of the night and I have a cortisol spike, which is why we wake up in the middle of the night because we're stressing about something, what I've learned is that if I've navigated some of those worries before I even get ready to go to bed, I actually will sleep better. So here's an activity that you can do. Just take a minute, get a moment when you have time to yourself to do this activity, and just get a blank piece of paper. And I want you just to write down all of your worries. Literally make the invisible visible, write down all of your worries, everything that's bopping around in your noodle and weighing heavily in your heart, whatever that is. There's no judgment. You don't have to edit this. You don't have to show anyone this, but literally just get all of those things, those irritants on a piece of paper. Okay. And then when you look at that list, and again, there's no judgment, just put it all out there. Because I think of it this way, worries left unattended is like a shoe in the dryer. It's literally going around going thump, 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 thump. Or I just put a hoodie zippy in the dryer right before this, and I had to stop the dryer because you could literally hear the zipper banging off the sides of the tumble of the dryer part, the tumble area. I think you know what I'm talking about. I digress. Back on track. Write all your worries down. Get that stuff out of your head, off of your heart, put it on a piece of paper. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the pen or the pencil, whatever you're using, and I want you to identify what is not within your control. So on your worry list, simply scratch out what is not within your control. Okay. So, for example, right now on my worry list, there would be tariffs. The reality is, I have no ability to directly impact any of the conversations about tariffs right now as a Canadian. So, I'm just going to scratch it off my list. It doesn't mean I'm not aware of it. It doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I can't do anything about it right now. So, I'm going to just scratch it off. Anything that I have somewhat control over. Okay. Like I could have a little bit of agency. I'm going to underline it. Okay. So there's something on that list I have a little bit of agency on. I'm going to underline it. And things that are within my control, I'm going to circle them. I'm going to circle what is within my control. And then what I really invite you to do is just to take a moment and look at your list and think about, how do I start? Prioritize 1, 2, and 3 of the things that are circled that are within your control. I want you just to pick 3 that you commit to taking action to. Now, you don't have to do that today. You don't have to do it right now. But the way, the science behind this, the psychology behind it, is worrying is essentially trying to get your attention. It wants to make sure that you are safe. It wants to make sure that you are okay and you're not missing anything, which is why we tend to repeat what we don't repair when it comes to worrying. And as soon as our brain sees and perceives that we have a plan, the worry starts to dissipate. The worry starts to lose its grip. So again, identify what those priorities are in terms of what you can do something about. Now, if we don't action our worry, it's literally just going to like kind of permeate every area of our life. It just kind of sprawls even in some unexpected places. But when we put a few guardrails around it, it's pretty powerful. So I want to make sure that all of that worry is off my head and my heart before I even try to go to sleep, because otherwise, as soon as I have that cortisol spike and I wake up at 1 in the morning, I'm going to jump into worrying about those things that haven't been processed or actioned. So a worrying practice before you go to bed, but I wouldn't do that like right before I go to bed. I would make sure I would be doing that a couple hours out, especially, for example, like at the end of the day of your workday, or perhaps even in the morning, right? So this is an activity not too close to bed, but you'll get the benefits closer to bed when you get a good night's sleep, because you've taken essentially the running shoes out of the dryer. Okay, so another tool, now that we actually are in bed, we're sleeping or working towards that, I appreciate that our minds sometimes can feel pretty racy because we're like, we move very quickly through the day. So progressive muscle relaxation is a tool that we use with first responders. We use it with members of the military. We use it with athletes. And essentially, what we're going to try to do is get out of our head and get into our body. And what better place to start than our toes? All progressive muscle relaxation is PMR. All you have to do is like kind of think of your body in these different kind of parts, as we have these different body parts, and start at the bottom and work your way up. So I want you to like just squeeze your toes. We're going to start at the tip of our toes. You squeeze your toes maybe for 5 seconds, tight, 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 and then release. And then kind of mentally kind of move up to your calves, like squeeze your calf muscles, tight, 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 tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and release. Okay, then you want to think maybe about your quads. So kind of tight your quads as hard as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then release. You get the idea. So basically start at the tip of your toes and you can work all the way up your body, getting there to eventually to your shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then release. And some people find it helpful to do like go up one side of the body, then go down and then come up the other side of the body. And then eventually you're going to, your shoulders, if we said your biceps, your triceps, your forearms, and then your hands. Okay. And then even squish your face 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then release 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So go head to toe to head, however you want to do it. There's no right or wrong way, but the idea is that we're kind of getting out of our head, we're getting into our body, and we're basically saying, okay, turn it off. Flip the switch. I think there's an amazing app on the Calm app that does like progressive muscle relaxation. And basically, they talk about this idea like turn off your foot, turn off your knees. Like it's like you can think about it as a turn off as well. I find doing the tension and release, time under tension, release really effective. Okay, so now we're going to try and get our bodies a wee bit more settled. Now, let's say you do that, but your brain is still racing. My absolute go-to, and this is like almost feels like a fail-safe for me, is I start counting backwards from 1,000. I can still be wide awake counting backwards from 100, but the act of counting backwards from 1,000 is my absolute go-to strategy that has not failed me yet, and I don't believe it will. The act of holding number recount and recall backwards from such a high place basically takes all of this cognitive energy that otherwise would be swirling around. It gives it a very focused task. And what that allows, because our brain is essentially occupied enough to actually allow the sleep to start to take over. Okay, so again, try that next time you might be sitting there with squirrely thoughts. 1,999, 998, 997. Now, I shared that before recently, and someone said that, they screwed up by the time they got to like 921 and they felt really bad. My friend, these are practices. Your behavior to re-regulate. This isn't about perfection. If you notice you are stumbled or you missed a number, just go back to another number that you remember, 930, and go from there. There's no judgment in this. What we're trying to do is create a sense of enough distraction that the physiological cues are registered that will allow us to fall into rest. And I think a lot of times we're not actually falling asleep. I think many of us are like literally passing out because we're exhausted. And because we haven't done the wind down, sleep becomes much more challenging. Hence also why we're waking up. The other gentle piece too is to recognize that looking at just one night of sleep over the course of a week isn't necessarily a great data point. And what I mean by that is, I remember talking to a group of Olympians and I was asking them, what was it like the night before you competed? What was that night's sleep like? And many of them shared that they didn't sleep a wink. Or I just recently talked to somebody who competed in the New York City Marathon, and the same thing. They did not sleep a wink before the night before. So the other practice I encourage you to think about is think of your sleep in a cluster of 3 days. Okay, so thinking about like the sleep that, let's say you have a big presentation. Think about the night before your very presentation. You want to really like lock in that particular night of rest, because we know that likely right before the big event or that big presentation, it's going to be harder to get a good night's sleep, but you can still get some of the benefits of the sleep a couple days before. So think of your sleep in terms of like clusters of 3. I find super helpful. So not all is lost if you wake up and you have, not a great sleep the night before something that's important. It's okay, especially when we have overall good sleep practices and good sleep hygiene. And I look at it, if you can get like 75% of the time of anything relatively dialed in and locked in, you're going to experience good results, right? Like essentially you're getting a B plus, right? If you're a B plus sleeper, you know what? That's pretty awesome. We don't have to all be A plus in every dimension of our lives. A solid B plus is going to serve you well. Interestingly, on that note about being a B plus person, I remember when we were looking at the research around life satisfaction, like people like at the end of their lives, when they reflect on their life, What was so remarkable is the people who had the deepest and the highest scores of life satisfaction essentially were B plus humans. Like they were like smart enough that they were able to like have good, a solid income, and they were able to be really contributor and like a great contributor in terms of whatever their jobs were. Like it was great, but it was like their whole identity wasn't tied into their job per se. Like they were able to have a solid livelihood and a solid lifestyle, but it wasn't at like all or nothing. We knew that their relationships were better. They had hobbies, they had interests. Like essentially, B plus is like the sweet spot for life satisfaction. Now, as a mama, it is very challenging to try and encourage your children to be B plus humans, as opposed to A plus. I still remember when Hunter was little, like, oh gosh, I think he was like in maybe grade 4, 3 or 4. I remember he got like an A on this little assignment and he was like nervous. And then the teacher asked him, Hunter, why are you nervous? You did really well on it. And he said, well, my mom really likes B pluses. She doesn't really like A's, which I think is absolutely adorable. I digress. Okay, so let's bring this back and let's start kind of winding down here because I want to ensure that we're staying within this 20 minutes so it's an easy grab and go bite-sized type of a podcast for you, because I've heard from you and you say you like the 20 minutes. It's how long it takes you to get to work for some of you, or how long it takes to get home, which I think is adorable. Jenny, thank you for listening. Okay, so last big idea. This is the last little takeaway is we talked about the worry list. Another little extension of that worry list is if you have something and you're prone to, thinking of something right at the last minute and you're worried you're going to forget it. And we were talked in the last day about not having our phones right beside the bed. My encouragement for you is to literally have a piece of paper and a pencil on your night table, right? Your nightstand, just a post-it note or a little piece of paper. So if there's that last minute, like, oh, I have to order dog food, or, oh, I have to remember to do X, you don't need to like get up and run to the other room to like make a note on your phone. You can literally just put it beside you jot down on a piece of paper. Okay. So having a little post-it note nearby, whips next to your little glass of water could, I think, serve you really well. So you don't have any of those last minute, like, oops, and then feel the need to go check out your phone. And then you're scrolling for hours standing in the other room, when really we need to be getting some rest. Okay. I hope that was useful. So I think we've covered a good piece on sleep. Random, just totally random. I had a conversation with the family about one of those research findings I told you in the last episode about how 85% of people dream in color and 15% dream in black and white. I just think that's so peculiar. Wow, did we ever have interesting conversations around the dinner table about what their dreams look like and how they see and what color and what not color they see in their dreams. So if you're looking for around the table conversation starter, having a conversation with people about whether or not they dream in black and white and color is pretty useful. My extra little special moment for people who know Jackson, my special little Jax, I said this comment. I said, I'm somebody who dreams mostly in black and white. And Jack said, don't all old people dream in black and white? Which was, if you know Jackson, you know that like he has like the most adorable, fascinating way of seeing the world. And I love that he thought that all old people like me, hi, I'm 45 years old, that we dream in black and white. So there you go, my friends. Hope that's useful. Take good care. Please continue to ask me anything that is top of mind for you. I want to be useful. I'm here for you, and I'm already cheering for you. So I hope you have a good night sleep later tonight. Take good care. Bye for now. Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.